confident people, and welcome to another episode of our Entrepreneur Series. I'm your host, Dr. Jacqueline Jarl, also known as Coach JJ. In this series, I invite entrepreneurs from all walks of life to share their unique journeys. My goal is to challenge the traditional ways we think about work, money, and freedom, and to provide inspiration for you to regain your power and design a life you love. Today, we have Megan, online health coach, with us. Megan is also a veteran like myself. And Megan, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, really.
Yeah. Megan, I'm going to throw it over to you to do your brief introduction of yourself and your business. So, Megan, please take it away.
Great. Like Coach JJ said, I'm Megan. I'm an online health coach. Recently have moved to the entrepreneurship life for the past year. And what I do is I coach women from all over the globe online, whether it's their fat loss goals, they want to gain muscle mass, whatever health goal they're trying to achieve. Seems pretty simple, but if you're ever in the coaching space, you know there's a lot more layers that come underneath that.
Yeah, definitely. So, Megan, now you said you've been, in obviously running your own business for about a year. Tell us a little bit about kind of what got you onto the entrepreneur path.
Yeah, and I think this is something we've talked in depth before in the past, and I think something that entrepreneurs, when they do tell their story, it's very, very similar. So I've been coaching for over a decade at this point, and got my mat when I got out of the military. I got my master's in exercise physiology, and I knew my goal was to be a collegiate strength coach. And once I was on that scene, I kind of figured out it really wasn't for me.
Mm.
And then it was also the height of the pandemic. So I was at a crossroad of I either continue to pursue this dream that there was no job openings for, and be broke, or try to seek for a new job and kind of put this like dream on hold, you know? And so I ended up taking a job in Huntsville, Alabama. I was a systems engineer. And I was with a great, consulting company for 4 to 5 years. Yeah, from when the time that I quit. But coaching is what I wanted to do, and so it was always something that I did on the side, whether it was volunteer coaching, um, youth teams. I've coached football, basketball, volleyball. I coached also volleyball. And then there's just always a small trickle of like personal clients that I've had. So I've trained people out of my garage gym. I've trained people out of the gym. And it was just always something that I did. And then in 2020, I joined a team, and then started coaching people online. Um, but I still have my daytime job. And I guess that's the point of getting at of I think it's smart to keep your daytime job to keep everything flowing,
Yeah.
food on the table, all of that as you're building your dream on the side. So it was a lot of hours. I was single at the time too, so um, I was able to build up clientele on my personal coaching side, and then also being a project manager, ended up being a project manager on the consulting company side. Um, and then it reached a point where I was making the same amount as my online training on the side as I was on in my full-time job. And we're all products of boomers, like, for sure. And the fact that I had to sit at a desk from 9 to 5 every single day just was asinine to me.
Yeah.
And I had so much freedom with online coaching because I was done when I decided to be done. I could work at any hour of the day to give a product to a client, a workout program to a client. I could schedule a call with them whenever I wanted. Didn't have to be in a certain like time frame. Um, I don't think there was a like, yep, I'm gonna like go full time because I decided to do so. There's a half truth to that.
Mhm.
Um, I gave birth to my daughter. And at that point, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. If I put her in daycare, half of my paycheck is still
Mhm.
gonna still
Yep.
gonna be gone. And then also, I'm not gonna spend time with her. She's gonna get sick. A lot of those daycare horror stories just like haunted my mind, you know? So, respectfully, told my consulting company, like, hey, I'm gonna take a year off. There was no like, I'm quitting, right?
Right.
I started coaching full time and honestly never went back. And it was the best decision I've ever made in my entire life.
Yeah.
And spend a lot more time with my daughter. I'm able to go to my husband's work events if he, wants me to go, and just significantly less stressed out. In corporate
Mhm.
America, I was so stressed all the time. And I will say my husband had a big influence in making this decision as well, because it wasn't necessarily permission, it was support in doing that, because he knew it would make me a better mother and make me a better like wife too. So it's definitely not a solo man operation.
Yeah. I mean, so many things that that you said there that I kind of want to dive into, but obviously, first off, I want to talk about the transition from full time work to essentially owning your own schedule, right? Because that ultimately is I think what we want to do when we think about entrepreneurship, right? Is we own our own time, and we have the power to decide what we do with our day. When we travel, right? For me, it was a huge thing. It's like I want to be able to take vacation when I want to take vacation, and
Right.
not have to ask somebody else if I can go on vacation, right?
Dad, can I
Like,
go
doesn't
on
that
vacation? Like,
yes, like, that seemed very like, as an adult, right? That seemed very weird to me.
yeah,
And I understand the whole, like, obviously there's, they don't call it chain of command, obviously, they call it kind of like your leadership, right? But there is a chain of command. This is for, all of our military folks, regardless of what company you're in, unless you own it yourself. Right? Like
right,
you're going to have a boss. Like even the CEO of a company, right? Of a Fortune 500 company, like you report to the board. So the board is your boss, right? So it's kind of so the freedom piece, I think, right, is really huge. But I think a lot of people that I talk to, men or women or military like veterans, when like they have this idea, right? They have this desire, I should say, to be like an entrepreneur. Like they're like, I want to do this. I know the market is there. But then because they've never not had a full-time job before, so this was me, right? Like I was in the military. I transitioned out of the military into a civilian company, and I worked at that civilian company for 11 years. And there's a lot of times, right? There's like, well, what if I don't make enough money? What if I can't support my family when I go entrepreneur? What if the business fails? Right? There's all of these questions. Like, how are you able to, first of all, did you have those thoughts, right, when you were transitioning? And if you did, like, kind of, how were you able to overcome? Just be like, nope,
oh
I'm
for
doing this.
sure.
Like, I'm not going back. I'm doing this, right?
Oh, for sure. Like the one of the points you made, like from the army, like one of the biggest reasons why I left the army, it's like not that like I didn't like being told what to do. That wasn't it at all. It was just like doing things just to fill time.
Yeah.
And that always like irked me. There's other reasons why I left the military, obviously like medical separation.
Yeah.
But that was a decision. I was like, regardless of the medical separation or not, I don't like being like I have to do busy work. I've always
Yeah.
hated that. So then when it transitioned to like civilian, like corporate America, I guess it was a little bit less of that, but I'm still have to be at my desk from like 8 to 5. So it's just like, okay, am I doing busy work? Is this productive? Are these meetings productive? Can this be in an email? And I'm just like, man, I could be done with my workday in 3 hours, but I'm at the
Mhm.
mercy, especially as a PM, of,
Yeah.
the lowest guy on the totem pole, which is the whole point of leadership. You know what I mean? So mentoring your teams, which I love. That was my favorite part of being a PM, was the coaching, right?
Yeah.
So I really like re-solidified, like, all right, I meant to coach. Um, but then transitioning from, the 9 to 5 to full-time entrepreneurship, I think the fact that I did online coaching at the same time as
Mhm.
that my 9 to 5, it really helped that transition, because it wasn't like a culture shock from like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm done at work in 3 hours. Like, what do I do now? You know what I mean? I'm able to better plan out my weeks or my
Mhm.
week. I'm like, okay, I can go grocery shopping this day instead of cramming everything on the weekend. So from like especially having being a mom, so planning around that, what my daughter needs, what we need for the household. Um, it wasn't a like, am I able to do this? It's just like, man, like having the perception and the mindset, like this is gonna make my whole family better because I'm
Mhm.
going to be more present. And like, yes, there's going to be certain months where like I don't make as much as I did the previous month.
Yeah.
And, of course, I'm not a solo entrepreneur. I'm married. So I have the support of my husband. So, um, I don't necessarily have to like worry about that. So like that's definitely a separate like conversation, like for sure, of like solo entrepreneurship versus an
Right.
entrepreneur that's supported by his or her spouse, right? If they do
Yeah.
have like a full-time job. Um, but I think, yeah, I think the fact that like doing 9 to 5, doing it at the same time as my online coaching space, and it just wasn't that huge of a culture shock because I got to see like the light, when I
Mhm.
was doing my daytime job, I'm like, man, I'm done with
Yeah.
this, and now I gotta still be at my desk till 5 p.m. or like whatever it was. So
Yeah. Now, how long like did you have that the double up, right? The working the full-time job and the online coaching?
about 4 years. Yeah, four
Okay,
years.
4 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm trying to get at is I a lot of people when they have the desire to go entrepreneur, they're like, well, I can't do it when I'm in a full-time job because I just don't have the time, right? And I think for me, it's like it is very hard to go from a full-time job and I would say somewhat steady paycheck because, layoffs can always happen.
That's another thing
Um,
we're going to talk about.
yeah, layoffs can always happen. So it's somewhat of a steady paycheck and knowing what exactly is going to hit your bank account, right? Every other week or however often you get paid. To like oh, I'm gonna quit that and start from nothing. Right. That's very hard. I will 100%
Right.
agree with that. And I do think most entrepreneurs who do have a full-time job who like first started working in corporate America, um, that's what they do, right? They do it, they do both at the same time for an extended period of time until they essentially can say, okay, the money that I'm making from my side hustle, right? Ultimately, it's your side hustle if you have a full-time job. The money that I'm making from the side hustle is either going to replace my full-time salary or it's enough to where I can survive, right? And not like struggle to put food on the table. And I know that there's the potential to grow because it has already grown and I'm not working at it full time. Right. So it's
Right.
it's things like that. So I think like again, very, very important, right? Like if you plan on doing your own thing, if you plan on being an entrepreneur, like it's not like an overnight. It's not like a 6 month, 12 months thing. Like it usually is longer if you are building it from scratch. And you also have a full time job that's taking away at least 8 hours of your day, right? Most of us work more than that, more than the 8 hours. If you're in a salary job at a Fortune 500 corporation. So you have to decide, all right, is this a priority and how am I going to make the time work, right? Because like you still have family obligations, you right, and a bunch of other things that you have to do outside of work. So it's like, do I want to work weekends? Do I want to work? It's almost obviously you have to work evenings and weekends, right? When you're in those situations, So it does take some work and it takes a lot of planning and it's years in the making, right? I think a lot of people maybe have this idea like I'll start a company and then immediately I'll start to make this amount of money. Like that's not necessarily true, right?
That,
It takes
that's
time to build your clientele.
that's our like our coaching business in a
Yeah.
nutshell.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I want to lose weight. Like, hey, I want to gain muscle mass, but I don't have the time. You got to make time.
Yeah.
You obviously haven't made it a priority or you don't value
Mhm.
it enough to make time. Because if you really value that Netflix show, you're gonna sit your butt on the couch and watch it, right? So if
Yep.
you really value the goal of losing weight, building muscle mass, whatever it may be, you're going to make time for it because it's valuable to you. In your case, like financial freedom, right? So
Right.
like you're going to make time to make sure that Coach JJ has everything that she needs in order to help you. So that's like a big thing. And then what was my other point I was going to make? I don't remember. It'll come back to me.
Okay. Cool.
Oh, the
Awesome.
other thing is
Yeah.
like there's a lot of like entrepreneurship, like coaches, right? Like start your own business and leave your
Yeah.
daytime job in 6 months. Like there is no timeline. There is no timeline. Everybody's timeline is different. Could I have, I said 4 years. So like, could I have completely pulled the trigger, after year one? 1000%. And I
Yep.
think something that we've talked about before, and hopefully we're going to dive into onto this is identity. When we
Hmm.
left the military, it was a big
Yeah.
identity shift and something that was really, really hard for me to let go, especially as a West Point grad. We're surrounded
Yeah.
by people with their MBA, you have your MBA, but people with their MBAs and they have these like multi-million-dollar businesses and stuff like that. And I'm just like, oh, I'm just like a, health online like health coach, and I held on to that like PM position that I had at my fancy consulting company because of the identity. It wasn't because I
Yes.
didn't want to coach full time. So
Yeah.
that was the hardest. That was the reason why it took me 4 years to like finally switch over. One, I had a baby, but like number two, and
Hmm.
even the first year navigating things on my own, it was a huge identity shift. And it took me like over a year and a half to even like post something on, not that like I need to post anything on LinkedIn to like validate myself, but like, hey, like if I could do this and like I understand the identity
Yeah.
thing, especially as like an academy grad and stuff like that, like you can do it too.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, let's transition into that because I did want to talk about military transition with you as well. So let's just dive into that. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I got out of the army, like I had completely no idea how to apply for a civilian job, right? Like I went to all those TAP classes, but like they don't teach you about civilian
The
stuff.
SAC
They teach you
conferences,
about, yeah, they teach you about USA jobs and like it's all mainly geared towards government jobs.
right?
And I don't even think I went to the SAC conferences. I'm sure they had them, but when I was, and this is, I think I was a 2008 grad, so I got out in 2013, like December of 2013. And there just weren't as many organizations that helped veterans transition as there are today. Like there are so many nonprofits now, right? That help you with either the
It's
mentorship or
oversaturated.
resume writing, or you can do an internship. Like there's the skill bridge stuff. I don't even know if that was around when I was there.
I think
If
there's
it
still
was,
SkillBridge. There's another
yeah,
great organization for like people that are listening. It's called Hiring
yeah,
Our Heroes. If you
keep
are
going.
like,
Yep,
hey, I still don't want to be an entrepreneur, Hiring Our Heroes is great.
yeah,
But you don't know what you don't know. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And they're talking
exactly.
in jargon that you probably just like don't recognize because you
Yep,
just don't know it yet, which is fine.
yeah, yeah. And I do think the identity piece is huge, right? And that's like for me, and I did write about this on LinkedIn. Can I just like I absolutely hate posting stuff. Like it's not who I am, and it just like, but I feel like in today's world, that's just like how we express ourselves.
Yeah,
It feels very weird to me, right? That you're like, I'm gonna post this into the abyss of the internet, and whoever sees it, right?
right.
Like for me, I'm more of like the one-on-one. Like if I'm telling somebody something, it's because they're my friend, or I've connected with them, or they're my family member, right? And like I know that they care about me. And they most likely asked me about it, so that's why I'm telling them. Like, it's so weird to me that I'm like, let me just post my life on the internet for whoever cares to
Yeah.
read about my posts, you know. And again, I feel like this is somewhat of an identity thing as well, right? Because for me, it's like, well, if people don't want to know it, like why should I post something if they don't care about it? Right? Like, maybe they don't care about me that way. Like, maybe they're an acquaintance of mine, but we're not like friends, so they don't really care about my life and something like that. So this is like, I think it's just something that I have to work through in my mind. Um, but as far as like the transition identity goes, and I see this a lot, the longer you spend in the military, the more you struggle with this. Okay.
Yep.
Is like when you're in the military, right? It's all about service. It's about defense of the nation, right? And all of that. And when you get out of the military, unless you go into a government job or like a three-letter agency, right, and things like that, like you're most likely not going to find that type of like service and identity, right, in the corporate job. Again, different if you transition to, you know, like a Raytheon or a Lockheed, right, where they're still like building things for the military. But with most corporate jobs, like it's like you're there to help the company make money, bottom line. Right? Like, I just, like, very bluntly put, like the company is there to make money and they will do everything in their power to make the most money possible. That this is why layoffs happen, right? This is so I think that not only when, like, do you have the identity crisis when you're first getting out, be like, oh, like one day I'm this colonel, captain, you know, whatever, major in the army, and then the next day you get out and you're literally civilian, like you're nobody. You're a civilian. And most people in the civilian world don't even know what you did in the military, right?
Right.
Like people try to go and explain, but it's like it's very hard because the number of people, like overall population, right? The number of people who have been in the military have been on the decline. So it's just, I think it's very hard. Like once you get into the civilian companies, like you really have to find your purpose. Like you have to join a company that has a true purpose outside of making money, right? Like that's their number one purpose is to make money, obviously, for any for-profit civilian organization. But it's like when you join a company, do you believe in that company's mission and purpose? Otherwise, you're going to struggle. Like, I don't know if you kind of felt like that when you were getting out as well. But for me, it was like, I was like, yeah, like, obviously I need money.
Right.
Right. So I'm going to go join a company, but I actually, like, I went through Lucas Group, and I told them, I was like, I want to work for a company that makes products that are needed by society and not wanted by society. So that's how I ended up in med device, right? There's a little bit of purpose and fulfillment tied to that. Of course, at that time, this is again back in 2014 when I joined my civilian company. I did not, like, I was not on the road to financial freedom yet. I just didn't even know enough about finances to be on that road. So
Yeah.
this was, you know, when I was desperate, because I was out of the military for 6-7 months, didn't have a job, didn't even know how to apply for a job. That's why I signed up for Lucas Group. Yeah. So and then I think obviously the identity shift, and changes that happened over the last 11 years that, you know, led me to ultimately being able to retire from my full-time job and be like, yeah, like this is, like, I'm gonna just teach people, right, how to be financially free, and that's my new
Mhm.
purpose in life, instead of helping a corporation make money.
Would you say that it took time for you to figure out your new purpose? I guess what I'm
Oh, for
getting at,
sure.
like, I want people to know, like, they get out of the military, you're
Hmm.
not fear mongering, you're gonna have an identity crisis. Like,
Yeah.
it's a completely different environment in the civilian
Yep.
world. Not fear mongering, you just don't have that safety net anymore. If you get fired in the army, you get placed in another job, you still get
Yeah.
paid the same amount. Okay. Um, and you have a set path. You have to have your key leadership time. Well, there's a difference between officers and
Yep.
enlisted, but there's a certain track that you have to
Mhm.
follow, regardless, right? Unless you
Yep.
go like special forces route or something, they have a completely different path. But you're going to go through an identity shift, and there's so many like veteran owned businesses, and I think all of them are great. I think they're also oversaturated. How many veteran t-shirt companies are out there, and like coffee companies? Again, like I love
Yep.
Black Rifle Coffee. They're like the top of my list. But it's okay if you don't know what you want to do as
Mhm.
soon as you get out. And
Yep.
sometimes it takes time to like find that like new identity. I knew I wanted to coach. Never in a million years would I think like, yes, I want to be an online fitness coach for women, working women and moms. I did
Yep.
not know my niche probably
Mhm.
until like a year and a half ago. I coached men, I coached kids, I coached amputees, I coached
Yep.
people with cancer, I've coached people with MLS, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
you know, like it, I don't think identity crisis is like the right word. It's just like identity exploration, and give yourself that
Mhm.
time. And maybe you go with a company that doesn't necessarily align with your values, but it gives you stability for like at
Yeah.
least a little bit for you to kind of figure that out. And that's fine. And it's okay to admit that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%. I mean, I feel like that's what happened to me, right? Like when
yeah.
I got out of the
That's what I was
military,
gonna
I was
ask you. So like when did
yeah,
you think that you
yeah,
like kind of found your
yeah.
purpose?
I mean, even after I was like, oh, like financial freedom is what I want to coach people on, like teaching and like learning and development, I should say, right? It has always been my passion. Like my master's is in teaching and my doctorate is in education. So like I was always very, very passionate about learning, about knowledge, and the sharing of knowledge, to be specific, right?
Mhm.
Like I truly, truly believe that if you learn something and you keep it to yourself, like you don't share it with people, then like what's the point of learning that? Right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, great. Like
Yep.
you yourself know it, but if you're not like sharing the knowledge, or if you're not presenting it in a way to where other people can learn from the knowledge that you have, then it's like you just like threw it down a hole. And you know what I mean? So it's like for me, it's like, yeah, it's not just me learning the knowledge, but it's like very important for me to share that knowledge with other people. And like I said, like when I first got out of the military, I had no idea about finances, right? Like never in a million years would, like back then, if you told me, oh, you're gonna end up being a financial freedom coach, I probably would have laughed you off stage, right? Like
Yeah.
I was like, I don't even know the difference between, again, this is back then, right? Like a mutual fund and an ETF, and a, what's a brokerage account, what's a pre-tax account, what's a post-tax account, like no idea. Like those words were gibberish to me when I first got out of the military, right? I literally was just like, I need money. So I need to
And
go
I
work
need it
for
now.
yes, and I need it now. So like I need to get off my mom's friend's couch or guest bedroom, right? Like I've been living here for months, and I just need to like I need my own. So I literally like joined in, and then I was like, after I joined, I'm like, I'm gonna be the best employee. Right. Just like when I was in the military,
Yep.
like I'm gonna be the best
Hmm.
lieutenant, I'm gonna be the best captain or whatever. I'm gonna be the best employee. Like I wasn't even in the frame of mind to be like, oh, I can do something for myself. I'm like, no, no, like full-time job, like that this is it. Like you work a full-time job. Like that's what you are. That's what everybody does, right? Type
But
type of
we
mentality.
weren't trained that way. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like again, I'm not saying like West Point is bad, like
Yeah.
no regrets. I know you probably have no regrets,
Yeah.
but like there's a that's the purpose of the military. There has
Yep.
to be a common like mindset to accomplish the mission.
Yep.
And I think I don't want to like transition us, but I think that's why a lot of folks, whether it's academy, whatever school that they go through, I think college as a whole, I think the social cultural
Mm-hmm.
acts of like college is like, okay, I do college and then I go to a job
Yep.
and then
Yep.
I retire and then that's when I
Yep.
can like go on
Yep. I
vacation.
worked for 30 or 40 years for this job,
Right.
and then I retire,
And
and then I can enjoy life in my
right.
60s,
And like
70s, if I get to live that long.
you're just like, what? Like, what do you like?
Yes.
And then, like, going to your point, like asking mom and dad to like go on
Yep.
PTO or going on leave, and then have to draw a map of like where I'm going. Like, what? What are you talking about? This is ridiculous, right?
Yep.
Um, but it's just that change in that mindset of the okay, point A to point B, point B to point C. When people go to point C to point Z, they start freaking out, and it's a
Yeah.
life that's not for everybody,
Mhm.
you know? it's not for everybody. And like the people I think that kind of identify it's not for them, like good for them. No one's better
Yeah.
than the other person. It's just like
Yeah.
different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. There's no right or wrong way to do life, right?
Right.
Like whether you want to work corporate for 40 years, a lot of people are very successful in doing that.
Right.
And they're
Yeah.
able to work it out with their spouse, with their families, where they do have the freedom that they want and they enjoy life and they love it. And there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that, right? But for a lot of people, who like if you're in a situation where you're like, oh, I don't know, like 9 to 5, I just don't feel like this is for me, right? And then your mental health and like all of those things, then like there are other options, right? Like I would never dissuade anybody from working at a corporation. Like that's what made me successful is working at a corporation, right? And then being able to optimize my corporate salary to support my freedom. Because I can tell you right now, like a lot of people, they leave corporate and they have their own business and their business sustains their lifestyle. Like if even if I did not have the coaching business, like I have enough passive income to sustain my lifestyle. Like that was my goal. My goal was not to start a company. Okay. So like I didn't even start the company until the end of 2023. After I had already like have enough passive. Of course, I didn't quit until 2020, until this year, right? 2025. But I was financially free at the end of 2022. But I held on to the corporate job because I was like, I mean, what am I going to do? Like, who am I after the corporate job? Again, this is
Right.
another identity crisis shift
Yep.
again, right? Where I was like, well, at least now when I go out, I can tell people I'm an HR leader in a Fortune 250 company, right? Like
Right.
I let that identity define me as a
Right.
person, right? So when it came to, and I was like, yes, I'm financially free, but there was always that fear of like, well, who am I if I left corporate? Like, how are people going to perceive me if I no longer had this title, no longer had this, multi six figure salary? Like, who, like, I don't know, like, what am I even going to tell people when they ask me what I do? Right. And then I'm like, there's nothing wrong with telling people that you're retired. Like, there's
Yeah.
absolutely nothing wrong with telling
That's
people,
like the highest like
yes,
status, I think,
right.
like in the world, you
Yeah.
know?
But like in our
Um,
minds, it's like, you're too young to like, it's like the things that's been drilled
right,
into
because
us,
we
right?
are just
You're
been
too
geared
young to
that way. You
retire.
have to
You're
work till you're
wasting your life.
60.
You're not doing anything productive to contribute to society. Like all of these thoughts ran through my mind, right? When I was like thinking about quitting my full-time job and I was like, oh my God, can I do it? Can I not do it? How are people going to see me? How's my mom going to perceive me? Like, like there's all of these questions and ultimately it's fear of the unknown because you don't know how people are going to perceive you. And like when I go out and I tell people I'm 39 and I'm retired, most people are like, good for you. Like they see that as a good thing. But in my mind, because we always jump to the worst possible episode, right? The worst possible thing that can happen before I quit, I was like, oh, people are going to think I'm like lazy, or they're going to think that, I'm like, I just sit on my couch and do nothing, and things like that. But that's not true. I think for some of us, right? Like, don't just jump to the worst conclusion possible.
Right.
And also, like, does it really matter what other people think about you? Right. So like, I've come like over the last, I would say 2 months, um, I've like really leaned heavily into that. Like, I'm gonna tell people what I tell people, and then their opinion is their opinion. Like, it doesn't impact how I feel about myself, right? If
Yep.
they think I'm too young, if they think I gave up a lot of money, so that I can do whatever it is that I want to do, right? And things and I did like this is for most people, right? Your late 30s into your 50s is probably like your highest earning years. But like, what's the point? Like
It
if
reminds me of two
money, right?
clients that I have.
Yeah.
One client, she is a surgical resident and she's
Hmm.
24 years old. She's a baby.
Okay.
No,
Yep.
so like people rag on her because she's too young, right? So
Yeah.
like it doesn't matter like retired, what age you
Right.
are, you're
Right.
gonna
Right.
get ragged on no matter what. Well, you're too young to express your opinions on the ICU floor. And she's like, what the
Right.
heck? Like I have the same education that
Hmm.
you do. Another well, she's a girlfriend of mine. She's a VP
Yep.
of X position at X consulting company, you know, and well, she's too young to do that. So like no matter what, people are gonna like find
Yeah.
ways to like dig at you. Um, and then I guess like a personal story, I'm like willing to like share a little
Yeah.
bit when it comes to like retirement and finding your purpose, especially like with you sharing a little bit more of like I don't care what like people think anymore. And
Mhm.
also you have a purpose that's gonna serve you for your lifetime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though you are like retired. So oh, here we go. Okay. So my dad, he retired, God, what was it? He was like 55. That's all I remember him talking about, him
Mhm.
retiring, saving up, all of this. I was already out of the house at that point. I think I already graduated West Point at that point. And he retired, you know what I mean? So I was living in, Texas at the time. Where did I find out? I think I was in Huntsville. Yeah, I was. So he retired when I was in Texas. And then I moved to Huntsville and he visited me in July 2020.
Mhm.
That was the last time I ever saw him. Um, he retired and he didn't have a purpose. He was so focused on retiring. And then after that, like he started drinking a lot,
Mhm.
very, very depressed. I had no idea because me and my dad were very, very tight. So when he would call me, he would put on this face, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even when he came and visited me in Huntsville, like everything was hunky dory. And like I had no other reason to believe that things weren't
Right.
great, you know what I mean? I'm like, all right, dad, love you. Like, thanks for visiting. He'd always make a point to like visit me wherever I was living at the time. Um, he unfortunately committed suicide in March of 2021. And that really like if there were like reasons on my list of like why I like pulled the trigger on,
Mhm.
becoming an entrepreneur is because like I've heard more cases just because I'm more aware of it,
Yeah.
of people retiring and then their health
Yeah.
diminishes because their brain isn't sharp, they're not talking with people, they're not doing new projects, they don't have a purpose, right? Their whole purpose, their entire lives was to get to retirement. Then what?
Right.
You know? And like I'm not saying like don't retire. I'm not saying like don't do any of that, but it's good to have other things that make you excited. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Like a hobby, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
and I've told him before, I'm like, he was a football fanatic. And I'm like, man, he could have coached little league football. I don't
Yeah.
know. You know what I mean? He was an incredible welder, carpenter, you name it. And like he could have volunteered his time for that.
Mhm.
That's a whole
Yeah.
other conversation. I'm very big in the PTSD, suicide prevention space in the civilian and in the veteran world. But to my point, why I'm sharing that story is that like you have to do the things that you want to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes that purpose, even though you think like, oh, it won't be beneficial to people, it will be because
Mhm.
you are going to attract the people that want that. You know, you're not going to catch everybody when it comes to marketing, right? Like you and I select certain people. We're not for everybody, and that's okay.
Yep.
And that's the power of being an entrepreneur. I have a buddy that DM'd me. I can't tell you the amount of people that DM'd me after I posted that post on LinkedIn being like, hey, I'm doing my own thing. They're like, wow, I
Yeah.
wish I could do that. And he's a financial advisor. And I told you
Mhm.
that story, but long story short, like I'm like, do you like the clients that you have that you work with? They're like, no, they're butt heads. And I'm like, if you start your own thing, you could work with people you actually want to work with. And then if you don't
Right.
like them, you could fire them. Of course, have a refund policy and all that jazz,
Of
but
course.
you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
you can you have more control than you think. And yeah, there's gonna be some days where you work 12-hour days, like sure, but
Yeah.
there's gonna be more days than not than you work 3 to 4 hour days. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for sharing that story. And I'm obviously, very sad and to hear about your father and kind of the way, but I think it's very true what you say about retirement,
it's a
right?
dramatic
Yes.
perspective. And that's
Yes.
kind of like what I wanted to like when people do
Yeah.
listen to this, like not that like you have to become an entrepreneur, but it's probably important to search your
Yes.
identity, even though you're in a cushy corporate job or whatever. And like behind the scenes, like I don't know what's going on in your brain. Like I don't know what you're
Mhm.
thinking about. I have plenty of DMs that obviously I can't share, but like
Yeah.
of people that have alternate lives
Mhm.
that they're just
Yeah.
too scared. I don't
Yeah,
want to say scared.
100%.
They just don't know. They don't know what they don't know to pursue it. And it could
Yeah.
start so small. It could start with one person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think the other thing that you said, earlier about like you didn't know who, like your niche, right? You didn't know who you wanted to coach or things like that. And same thing. Like I think all entrepreneurs expect like 100% smooth sailing. They're like, this is my thing, right? And then you come out and you're like, oh, actually, that's not. I don't actually like that, right?
Yeah.
Like what you said earlier, and I this is like so many people have said it to me, right? Financial, so many financial advisors actually specifically have like, yeah, I got the license because I thought that's what I wanted to do, and then once I started doing it, I was like, I don't actually like this, but then they feel stuck because they're like, well, I got the license, what else can I do? Type
Right.
of thing. And it's like it's okay to change. Like I'll give you my own example. When I first started this company in it was like November of 2023. I was like, I'm gonna help veterans like transition because part of my role at my corporate job is I ran military recruiting for 4.5 years. So like I know what big corporations are looking for, right? And how you need to position yourself, whether it's your resume, whether it's the interview process, things like that. So and then also I essentially couple that with like the financial freedom piece, right? Because for you, I don't want anybody to go through what I had to go through when I got out
Right.
of the military and I was broke, like on my ass and broke, right? So I and that's kind of like what I was like, this is my group. This is my group of people. Like there's no better group that I can connect with because I literally went through it myself. Um, and then and then you find out you're like, yeah, I like it's not really what I love. Like I don't love the veteran transition piece, right? And also there are so many, like we talked about before, like there are so many nonprofits that don't charge veterans things. Obviously, I'm not a nonprofit. So I'm like, yeah, I feel like I should just direct them to the nonprofits, and then if they have additional questions, they can set up one-on-one meetings with me. Um, and then
I
so
think there's a
so
lot of beauty though of
yeah,
veterans kind of figuring it out for themselves. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because again, they don't know what they don't know. You
yep,
know what I mean? So like we can't help everybody. And it's just kind of that
yes,
same mindset of like,
100%.
okay, so now when you get out, you go to this group and they're gonna place you
Yes.
into a job. It's just like I think
Yes.
we had to
Yep.
figure it out on our own,
Yeah.
like we're
100%. 100%. Yeah. But I've changed like my mission statement. Again, less than 2 years of like officially starting the company. Obviously, I've been coaching people and just talking to them about their financials, before that. Less than 2 years, I think I've changed my mission statement 3 times.
yeah.
So and my niche, right? Like I've literally changed because before I was like, oh, I want to help everybody who's struggling with money, like
You
everybody.
can't,
And now
you
I'm like, I
can't.
can't because my expertise is in financial freedom. My expertise is not in debt management,
Yeah.
right? Now, if you come to me and your problem is, hey, I have a lot of debt that I just like, I need to get a hold of that. Okay, like I have a group of coaches that I can reach out, and one of their expertise is debt management, right? So to me, it's like, yeah, like my expertise doesn't work for everybody's needs. And that's
Yeah.
okay. And the only way that you can really find that out is by doing it. It's like trial and error, right? Just
Mhm.
just like kind of what you said. Like you used to coach a bunch of people and now you're like, all right, like I'm only going to coach this group of people. And that's kind of how I did it for the last couple years, right? I had like beta clients, like free. I ran them through my program for free to help me, right? Give me feedback on my program. And that's really how I found out, like, okay, I don't really want to do this and I don't really want to do that. Like I don't enjoy coaching those things.
Yeah.
And then that helped me come up with a program that I love right now, right? And I made my own dashboard like that I just showed you, right? I made my own dashboard, my own spreadsheets, and you come up with a system that you love. I mean, that's the whole thing about being an entrepreneur is you get to control that. You
Yeah.
get to change your mission whenever you want, right?
There's no
That's the love.
SOPs.
Yes,
There's no
you don't
you
have to
you
ask
are the
anyone for
SOP.
permission. You are the boss. if
And
you're
that's
like,
scary,
I don't,
but that's
yeah,
scary to people, and that's scary to people.
yes,
And I think these conversations like definitely like help soften that. And like
yeah,
again, there's no timeline of like, okay, I'm gonna start right now. Like, no, like talk to people.
right.
Starts with one client though
Yeah.
at a
Yeah.
time.
And it's okay to like, let's say you have a couple clients and it's this one thing that you were thinking about doing. And then you're like, I didn't enjoy that. It's okay. It's okay to start over, right?
Yep.
You get to trial and error as many times as you want until you find the thing that you love doing, right? So don't, I think people get discouraged, right? When they try something and it doesn't work. And then it's like that like reinforcement loop in your brain. Like, oh, see, I told you weren't going to be good at that. Like, who are
Right.
you to try and think that you could be an entrepreneur, right? Like we have
Yep.
these little devil voices in our minds and it's like, no, it's okay. That's the whole point of entrepreneurship is to find what you love to do that can also support your lifestyle, right?
I think a big thing in the entrepreneur space too is like flashy light, flashy like whatever syndrome.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of like tools, and if you pay for this and like da da
Yeah.
da da, I'm like, you know what's free? Google,
Yes.
Office, full space,
ChatGPT, the free version.
Calendly, ChatGPT. Like you
Yep.
could literally have no overhead cost
Yep.
to start. And if you
Yeah.
don't like it, you didn't lose any money, you probably lost time, if
Yeah.
anything, but
Yeah.
you got that experience underneath your belt. And then
Yep.
once you're in a position where you're like, okay, my Loom or my Zoom meeting should probably be longer than 40 minutes of my free trial, right?
Yeah.
That's something I'm going to invest in. And then annotate that because that's a tax deduction. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So
Yep. Yeah.
it's
I mean,
also,
and this is like, cause like a part of my program, again, the financial freedom piece, right, is for those who want to be entrepreneurs. Like I help them start all of the background financials, for their business. And like, I did not have a automatic booking calendar thing until this year. Cause I didn't need it. And I was like, I don't know if I should invest in that. Right. And then this year I was like, okay, like I keep getting these people pinged and then I would have to go back and forth with them, either through email or through some kind of messaging system. Like, does this time work for you? Does that time work for you? Right.
yeah,
And then it just started taking up actually a lot more time. And I'm like, all right, it's time to invest in this automatic, calendar system. Um, yeah, so it's like you don't need everything from the very beginning. Like just if you just start and do it yourself, then you start to figure out, okay, I do need this, I don't need that, right? And things like that. I mean, the whole thing is just like you got to trial and error, and you just have to start. If you don't start, like you can't. What is it that people say? You can't learn how to drive a car when it's parked or something, or
yeah,
can't
that's a
something
great
like
line.
that. Something like that, right? But it's like you have to start, you have to put it in drive, right? And actually go and step on the gas pedal before you figure out, oh shoot, like I didn't know how to properly make a U-turn. Or right? Like
That's
you can
like
read about
people
it all day.
weighing their food for me, okay?
Yeah.
They think, oh, I'm eating 4 ounces of this, and I'm like, go weigh it. And they're like, oh, I'm actually eating 7. And I'm like, that's why you're not losing weight. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Until you actually do it, you don't
Yes.
know. And that's okay.
Yes.
But people are also afraid to fail. I think most of our conversation is it's all psychological, and I
Yeah.
think that's a very
Most of it.
wordy right now
Yeah.
word. And uh but there's no book for it, right? Like
Mhm.
we're always looking for a self-help book, or like how do I become more resilient or more gritty, and like Grit by Angela Ducksworth. Love that book.
Yeah.
She talks about West Point in the first chapter,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? It's just like, okay, when you read it versus actually doing it, that's two
Mhm.
completely different things. That's also my opinion about, I love that earlier that you said that like I'm an educator, and I think that's like a true measure of intelligence. I think the word intelligence is very ambiguous personally, but I think those that like graduate from Harvard or even like West Point and stuff like that, but they're not utilizing the tools that that place like taught them to give back. That's
Yeah.
just super selfish. I think that's really dumb. You know what I mean? So like use those like skills that built your character. And when you find your purpose, usually
Mhm.
people that are in the military, they want to give back, they want to serve other
Right.
people. So finding something to serve back. Anyway, that was just like a
Yeah.
random like tangent, but I forgot to mention
No,
that
I mean,
earlier. Yes, I love that you're an educator because I think people that like are
yeah.
on this ivory tower of academia like think
Mhm.
that they don't need to.
Yeah.
But they live vicariously through their school. That's what irks me. Like, I'm a West Point grad. I'm
Yes.
like, dude, you graduated 20 years ago. I don't care. Like, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like,
Yes. And I mean, to be completely honest, I think a lot of the things, like, just because you're like, let's say you have the ability to quit corporate and not do anything, like you have enough passive income to sustain you, which is what retirement really
yeah,
is, right? It's not an age. It's, do you have enough passive income to where, you have enough money to sustain your
it's a
lifestyle
position.
without
It's a position.
having, yeah, it's a position without having to actively, do something to gain that money. And like, I think for me, it's like, okay, yes, like I've achieved that. I have quit my full-time job, but that doesn't mean that like I'm just sitting around doing nothing. Right.
Right.
Like, and you also don't have to do things that make you money. That's the
Right.
beauty of retirement, right? A lot of retirees volunteer either with their church or with like maybe it's like a local food bank. Like I do a lot of free. I just started doing this actually. Again, like I'm like 3 months removed from retirement, right? So it's like I don't want people to think that I've been like off of work for years and years and years. Like I'm literally 3 months removed, and I've started doing like I'm like, all right, how can I help the community like without making any money, right? So I'm like giving money sessions at the local library. I'm like with some of my doctoral classmates, like I've offered to run like for teachers. I've offered to run sessions for teachers because they're educators, right? They're giving back to the kids, and they're essentially right like shaping the
They don't
future
make
of our
back.
nation. Yeah, and I was like, there's no reason for me to charge them, like because I love their mission, I love what they're doing. Like, let me help them. Maybe can be a little bit better with their money, so that they're not as stressed in life, right? And can build wealth and things like that. So I've actually like partner with some of my EDD classmates to run like these pro bono sessions, either for their staff and or for their students. To because it's really important, right? It's like gotta catch up young, like that's like because they have so much time. Time really is like the most important factor, right? When you're talking about financial freedom. So, but the thing is, like again, like it's about finding what you want to do, what you like to do, right? Like in order to keep you engaged, to keep you sharp. And most people, especially veterans, like they don't do well when there's no purpose in their life, right? Like
Yeah.
there has to be that purpose, and most of that is service, is giving back, right, to the community or something like that. So,
And from like
um,
a health perspective
yeah.
and lifespan to like development, a lot of, it could be genetic, right? But there's a lot of factors that lead to Alzheimer's or early
Mhm.
onset dementia.
Yeah.
And a big indicator of that, of course, is diet, but exercise, cognitive exercise,
Mhm.
physical exercise, muscle mass is really, really important. Of course, I'm plugging myself in here a little bit,
Of
but
course.
like, that's why I'm so passionate about it, especially,
Yeah.
my dad's story. It's just like, if he, even if he worked out every single day, that's a sense of purpose for him to wake up every single day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yep.
to keep going. Um, yeah, anyway, so.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Well, I think we're just about at the hour mark. So I want to be respectful of your time. So tell us if somebody, if audience watches this and they're like, hey, you know what? Like, I wanna have a chat with Megan. Like, I want to see if she can help me reach my health goals. Where do they find you? Where do they go?
So I'm on mainly on Instagram. So I'm at Mama Megan Fitness.
Okay.
You can message me there. I'm also on WhatsApp. I know a lot of folks are on WhatsApp these days, but those are the two main platforms. If any place, Instagram. If you don't have Instagram, I'm also on Facebook. Same handle, Mama Megan Fitness, and let's chat.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for your time. This is, I think, really insightful chat. It's, I don't get again the number of veterans. I think right is significantly less. So I love the chatting, not just about the entrepreneurship, but transition, because
Yeah.
everyone who is currently in service will ultimately transition out of the service. Right? It's not going to be like a whole life thing. So really, really important, I think, to really think about your purpose, your passion. And if you want to retire early, or if you don't want to retire early, but you should still be doing something, right? That fulfills your purpose, regardless of what you do, whether you're retired, working a full-time job, entrepreneur, right? All of that. So Megan, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you did like the content for our audience, if you like the content, make sure to follow and subscribe. Again, this is the Entrepreneur series. I want to maybe do it once a month going forward, because these talks have been so informative for me, personally. And I'm sure it can help a lot of people who might be thinking about, starting their own companies. So again, Megan, thank you so much for your time, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks.